Okay. Good morning, beautiful humans. Welcome to the second week of our May Level 2 Pranayama, Kriya, Mudra, and all things breath related. Yes. So I hope that everyone's had a lovely week. And this week we're going to be picking up on those two techniques that we were highlighting last week to make sure that everyone's really set with them before we start progressing from next week. We are moving toward Uddiyana Bandha and Kapalabhati, which are two very, very important techniques. But our Agni Sāra is a really important preparation for that. So before we get into some more sort of practical elements this morning, I'd just like to throw it out to you guys. I know it's very early in the morning and no one's had any coffee, but does anyone have any questions about especially the Agni Sāra or the pause after exhale, our Baihā Kumbhaka? And it's okay if you don't have any questions, that's fine as well. So let's pick up this week, shall we? This week we're going to be focused on exploring what I call the internal container, or the inside of that kumbha, that pot. So kumbha is part of that word kumbhaka that you will be familiar with hearing. And in order for the practice to progress and for retentions to progress safely, we really need to be very clear in our own awareness about our inner boundaries, or as I call it, the walls of the container. The pelvic floor is the bottom of the container. The internal space in the abdominal wall and in the thoracic cavity, so that's abdomen and rib cage. You can conceive of that as the walls of our pot. And then, of course, the tongue position and the formation of that laryngeal diaphragm. So our Jivha mudra, I believe I misspoke last week and called it Jivha Bandha. I do apologize for the confusion, and thanks for bringing that to my attention, Flick. But the tongue, that is the lid of the container. And so we're going to be exploring this morning some techniques that just help us to become a little bit more self-aware of where our inner boundaries are. And one of the things that you might notice today is an internal awareness of where some of your fascial tug is. So as we start to have a little bit of a play with holding more internal space, if you feel any weird pulling in different parts of your body, especially sort of around the shoulders, collarbones, neck, or anywhere within that internal space, it's interesting for you to just note that down mentally. There's nothing to be done about it yet, but note it down, write it down, and bring it to me so that we can explore that. So aside from exploring that inner space, we're going to be exploring or moving more into our Baihā Kumbhaka, those retentions after exhale. Because as you might have noticed looking around the environment in the last couple of weeks, the autumn drop is finally here. It was a little bit late this year, but it was a little bit late last year. Everything's on a weird lag at the moment. And so we're very interested from our perspective in aligning with apana vayu. So apana vayu is one of the 5 forms and functions of prana in the human body that moves things down and out. And that includes grounding the energy in our nervous system. So it's a very, very important vayu, and especially in the modern world, most people have a very, very strong affinity with prana vayu, as in taking things into the head. Most of us are taking too much in. And we're not always that well aligned with our ability to stabilize and ground. And so that's a big part of what this week's exploration, or where this week's exploration is taking us. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to come down onto your belly into Makarāsana. And before you roll your third eye at me and think, oh, that's so basic, Dominique, it's imperative to our exploration of that internal space. And for your students, if you're teaching them Makarāsana, it's giving them so much valuable information about how their breath is moving. As a facilitator, it's giving you such great diagnostic info. So yes, it is not beginners, it is basic, but it all depends on our awareness. So without any further ado, please will you make your way onto your belly and into Makarāsana. And if for whatever reason lying on your belly is inappropriate for you, you can do this on your back in Shavasana. If you do have a sandbag or a very heavy blanket that you could maybe pop over your belly and your rib cage, if you're taking the Shavasana option, then that will be very useful. And as you arrive on your belly, as always, just create a support for your head and your neck that feels best in your body. So have a play with where you put your hands and your arms, how you stack your hands, and make sure that your shoulders feel nice and comfortable here. And maybe give your hips a gentle wiggle to encourage the hips and glutes and lower back to settle. The big toes touching and the heels dropping away from the midline tends to proffer the most amount of space in the lower back for most people. But if the design of your skeleton is not loving that arrangement of the legs, then of course you can turn your toes out however you like. And we'll begin with an exhale, always. And now please come to meet your breath. Just moving the breath slowly and smoothly in and out through the nose. And allowing the majority of your awareness to just gather and coalesce in the region of the belly. Noticing the weight, the contact, the spread of your belly against the earth. And allowing your inhalations to become a little bit more deliberate, slow, and full. And you might notice as your focus is on the inhale and the action of the belly, you might feel how the belly pressing against the earth creates that lovely spread and movement around the rib cage, the side of the ribs, the back of the ribs. If you are comfortable to work with your Ujjayi technique in your Makarāsana, then that is always a lovely accompaniment. Not always necessary when you're working with your students, but for our purposes, I'll encourage you just to see how the Ujjayi layers over the top of your Makarāsana. And as you give yourself permission to settle here, allow your awareness to really fill that internal space. Sensing the walls of the container spreading and filling. And perhaps also becoming aware of how the pelvic floor, how the position of the tongue against the roof of the mouth are responding. And if you feel comfortable here, the invitation is to take a brief pause at the top of your next inhale. Inflate and spread the belly and ribs even more, increasing that intra-abdominal, intrathoracic space. And then allow the exhalation to be slow and smooth, letting it leave your body in two long, thin streams through the nostrils. And taking just the next minute or two to be completely attentive and present with this. The filling and the emptying of the kumbha, the inner pot. Stay with this. And at the end of your next exhalation, letting that pattern go and gently shifting yourself back into child's pose. If you're on your back, just hug your knees in toward your chest. And without disturbing yourself too much, just making your way carefully into your upright seat. Arriving in your upright seat, take a moment with the breath just completely relaxed to once more simply observe that space that you perceive, your internal container. You might choose to place your hands on your lower belly for your Agni Sāra, or if it's your preference, you can just leave your hands out of the way. Start with a lovely, complete exhale. And now take a long, smooth inhale. A long, smooth exhale. Soften the belly and pick up your Agni Sāra pumps. Clean, rhythmic, steady pumps. Focus, especially as you release that pump action, on a gentle swelling of the belly before you take your next pump in. When you sense that you have reached your maximum number of pumps, then take your next calm inhale and your next calm exhale and proceed with another round. We're aiming for 5 to 10 clean pumps in each round. If you sense any overwhelm, pause, take a reset breath. And when you feel calm, come back to your Agni Sāra. Remember, this is about gently awakening the system, not stressing it. Full attention. There is no breath movement as you pump. This is all performed on a retained exhalation. Take just one more round, please. We move next into our Valsalva maneuver. The Valsalva maneuver is the contemporary name for a host of techniques that are quite traditional. And essentially, a Valsalva maneuver is just the temporary and very conscious creation of increased internal atmospheric pressure. So when I practice it, I like to think of sort of stretching those internal walls of the pot. It can be very focused up into the head, as if when you're clearing your ears on an airplane, that's a very cranial Valsalva. Or you can choose to create the bulk of the Valsalva from the lid down, so more intrathoracic and intra-abdominal. The Valsalva maneuvers not only help us to become more aware of what's happening within the kumbha, within the pot, but it might also give you some information about where there's a little bit of fascial tug or some stickiness or congestion around those internal container walls. Plus, Valsalva maneuver is also a very potent vagal technique and helps to lower blood pressure and heart rate for a little while after we've performed them. So when you're ready, have a little practice and see where you're wanting to take your Valsalva today. So you might just pinch off your nose and create that feeling, that artificial exhale, like you're trying to clear out your ears, and notice how the head is feeling with that. And then take an internal Valsalva where you spread the ribs and push out the belly like you're bearing down and going to the bathroom. And notice how that is being received. Good. And now we'll take a few very conscious Valsalva maneuvers. Please, when you're ready, exhale completely. And then pick up a Valsalva intracranially, plug off the nose, create the feeling as though you're trying to clear your ears. Letting that go, keeping it nice and gentle. Take a smooth, calm inhale, a smooth, calm exhale, and now create your intra-abdominal, intrathoracic Valsalva. So take it down into the ribs and into the belly, like you're bearing down, gently going to the bathroom. Feeling the walls and the floor of the container fill and spread. Releasing that gently when you feel it's appropriate for you to do so. And we'll take one more round of each. So find your intracranial Valsalva, the one in your head, like you're clearing your ears on an airplane. Always nice and gentle, especially when you're working in the head. And then when you're ready, take another relaxed round of breath, and then take your Valsalva back into the body of the pot, into the floor of the pot, as you gently bear down, feeling the walls spread. And then gently release. Coming into your jivha bandha now, please, tongue against the roof of the mouth and gently swallow, opening the lower jaw slowly. And if you have a really well-formed jivha bandha, you might consider tipping your chin up at the peak of that maneuver and just having a little bit of a play with the angle of your chin in space. I like to conceptualize this as just strengthening and checking in with the seals of the lid of the pot. The strength and functionality of the tongue is what is creating that lovely, strong lid seal as we practice. We'll surrender our jivha bandha now and come to settle for our seated breath. You might take a couple of rounds of your reset breath to signal the system to arrive, to blow off any excess carbon dioxide that's been building in the body as we've been working with our kriyas and manoeuvres. And when you're ready, come to meet your breath once more, this time from your upright seat. If you detect that there's any instability in your mental energy, then gently take your eye gaze toward the bridge of the nose. And otherwise, rest here in your basic breath, tongue against the roof of the mouth. The waves of inhalation and exhalation channeled through the nostrils. In our practice, the nostrils serve dual purposes. Physiologically, we are moving our breath through the nostrils, but energetically, the nostrils are the gateways to the nadis. And so as we work with full attention and full intention in the nostrils, we are doing so much more than moving the breath. We are awakening the flow of prana in the Ida and Pingala nadis. There is nothing else to do. No mental gymnastics. Just a calm, intentional breath. And when you feel ready, please begin to welcome your ujjayi, that final layer of awareness. You might gently curl the corners of the mouth up into a soft smile, relaxing any unnecessary tension in the shoulders, neck, and face. And now please begin to take note of how long your inhalations are this morning. Counting a few consecutive cycles of the breath. And once you have ascertained where your inhale has landed this morning, please bring your exhalation up to match. Keep your mind anchored in the count and allow your physical senses to remain very curious as to the felt experience of the breath. You might notice the rising, swelling, filling sensation of the inhale, that movement of prana, vayu, and the gentle, sloping, emptying feeling as the pot drains on exhalation, apana vayu. Encouraging the movement of prana and apana, the inhale and the exhale, the filling and the emptying of the kumbha to become very balanced, very even. And then add in a pause after the inhale and after the exhale, moving into your Samavriti 2 cadence. Keeping each of the 4 sides of the breath steady and even. And allowing yourself to notice the slightly different qualities of each of the 4 sides of the breath. The filling of the pot as you inhale, that space of fullness as you pause after inhale. The sensation of the pot emptying as you exhale. And the sensation of the empty pot as you pause after exhale. Stay with this. At the end of your next exhale, letting go of the count of that pattern, allow your breath to return to its natural, quiet state. And simply observe. There might be a few extra churnings and gurglings bubbling up from your inner landscape as Vata dosha settles. We move now into another technique, sometimes referred to as interval breathing or breath stacking in the freediving community. But essentially, this is a technique where we take in little sips of air through the nostrils, feeling the pot gradually fill. And so we're very much exploring that internal space and that space of complete fullness. In a moment, we'll begin, and I'll ask you to just stack or sip in little sips of air as you go. And the idea here is to really keep the inhale, those little sips of air, very, very little sips, so that you're gradually feeling that fullness of the pot increase. When you sense that your pot is completely full, then we seal the lid with our jivha mudra, lifting the heart and dropping the chin, which is our preparation for our Jalandhara bandha. And then we'll pause there and just be in that space where we sense the container is completely full of prana, noticing that internal space and any tugging or just any information that your body's sending you as you retain that without tension or strain. And then when you feel it is appropriate for you to do so, we exhale very calmly whilst lifting the chin and the head back to arrive at neutral. And this is preparing us for more traditional forms of Antara Kumbhaka. So this is a lovely jumping off point to explore that practice. It is imperative, friends, that your succeeding exhale is very calm and very relaxed. And we're trying to coordinate all of this with conscious movements of the head and the neck. So I might just show you around just to demonstrate what we're doing. I'm turning side on so you can sort of see me here. So we start with an exhale always, and then taking in several little sips of air. And when you feel like that container's really very full, then the tongue moves to form jivha mudra. We swallow to seal the lid on nice and tight, and then lifting the chest as we drop the chin down and take a pause there in that space. If you feel called to seal your nostrils and take a complete Jalandhara bandha here, you can. Not necessary today. We're not holding it for that long. And then when you feel internally like that pressure is starting to become tension, just before you get to that point, we'll exhale through the nose calmly as you return the head and the neck back to neutral, and then take our next round. Now, when you're ready, just re-establishing your seat. If you need to have a little shuffle around and get comfortable, Always soften the face and shoulders and come to each technique with a very relaxed, open, and curious energy. Exhale slowly. And now begin to sip the inhalations in through the nose gently. No ujjayi technique needed. When you feel like the pot is full to brimming with prana, seal the tongue against the roof of the mouth and gently swallow. Collarbones lift as the chin drops. You might pinch your nostrils off here if you like. And just be in that space, the full container. No tension or strain. And when you sense that it is time for you to do so, very slowly exhale as you bring the head and neck back to their original position. Then take a calm, relaxed inhale, a calm, relaxed exhale, and then pick up your next round. Little sips of air through the nose, feeling that pot filling. The number of sips it takes you to fill is not important, but as you feel completely full, seal the tongue and swallow. The collarbones lift as the chin drops, and we take a pause here in our Antara Kumbhaka. You might encourage the ribs to soften and swell, let the belly protrude a little bit more. Explore that space. And when you sense it is time for you to do so, slowly lift the head as you exhale. Then take a calm, cleansing inhale, a calm, cleansing exhale, and take your next round of little sips with full attention. As you sense the pot is full to brimming, seal the tongue and swallow. Collarbones lift as the chin drops down. All movements sincere and slow. And pause here. Maybe taking a full Jalandhara Bandha and sealing the nostrils. And as you pause here, expanding the ribs, let the belly soften. It's a very slight increase of that pressure on the inner walls of your pot. And when you sense it's appropriate to do so, exhale slowly as you return the head, the neck to where you started. Take a calm inhale, a calm exhale, and take one more round. Little sips of air. Gradually filling the pot to capacity, sealing the tongue, swallow, the heart lifts as the chin drops. And then be in that space of contained expansion, fullness. And when you feel the time is right, lift the chin as you exhale smoothly. And take a relaxed, calm inhale, a relaxed, calm exhale. And now nothing. Simply observe. Try not to distract yourself with fidgeting. And when you're ready, please return to your Ujjayi breath. And then back into your Samavritti 1. Working with the count that you have already established for yourself today. The tongue resting against the roof of the mouth. The eyes gently directed down toward the nose. The smooth and steady rhythm of your Samavritti 1. We move next into our Baha Kumbhaka, the exploration of the empty pot. Follow along with me. Stay with your Samavritti 1 count. At the end of your next exhalation, pause. Experience the empty pot. As CO2 rises in the bloodstream, those familiar uncomfortable sensations of oxygen hunger will rise. Try to inhabit that space calmly. Allow yourself to be uncomfortable without being uptight about it. And when you sense it is appropriate to do so, take your next calm Samavritti 1 inhale. Use your count. Your next calm Samavritti 1 exhale. And then pause and inhabit the emptied pot. And when you sense the time is right, take your next calm Samavritti 1 inhale. A calm Samavritti 1 exhale. And then watch. Allow yourself to be empty. Ensure that your spine is upright. Keep the inner space of that container well situated. And continue with this pattern on your own. Samavritti 1 inhale and exhale. And then your pause with full attention, upright, relaxed posture. Stay with this. Remain very calm, even as you feel uncomfortable during that pause. You are safe. At the end of your next round, letting go of that pattern. Take 2 or 3 rounds of your reset breath. It's especially relevant to reset after Baya Kumbhaka, the external retention. And take a pause and observe. It's not that we're looking for anything specific. We're just looking. Move back into your Samavritti 1 rhythm. Settle back into the count that you've been working with. Are you perhaps able to expand your count by 1 or 2? And now please pick up your Brahmari technique. A long exhale with a gentle humming sound. The exhale will naturally elongate as you sense yourself running out of exhalation. Let the humming sound peter out. And take your next smooth ujjayi inhale and your next long exhale with Brahmari technique. At the end of your next long exhale, make your way onto your back for your Shavasana. Always try to move into your final resting pose with minimal disruption. Come to settle quickly. We have been exploring this morning our internal space. As we rest in Shavasana, I will leave you in some space and some silence. The invitation is for you to remain in your Shavasana with your attention directed inwards into your perceived pot. There is nothing to do. Just rest and absorb and watch your internal space until the sound of my voice summons you back. Allow your breath to deepen slightly. Bringing awareness from your internal space out into your limbs, your fingers, and your toes. Very carefully and gently rolling onto your favorite side, curling your way to an upright seat. As you arrive in your seat, remaining for just a few moments more with your eyes closed. How have you arrived here at the end of your practice, at the beginning of your day? What is your sense of your internal space? Gently float your palms to meet one another in front of your heart. As we close the session with gratitude and acknowledgement, extending our thanks for the gift of this day, our lives and our health, and offering our respects and acknowledgements to one another and to the custodians of this living tradition. As always, my very sincere respect, affection, and gratitude to you all, my friends. Thank you for your company. Does anyone have any questions and or comments? How do you feel? Svetlana, you've got your hand up.
Yes, hi Dominique, hi everyone. Thank you for a beautiful practice. I just wanted to make sure I'm doing it right when doing the Valsalva.
Oh, where did she go?
Are we doing that on the exhale?
Yes, correct. After exhale. Now, you can technically perform a Valsalva after inhale. That will create more pressure. And so this morning we were just practicing it after the exhale, just to get used to it. You could do it either way though, but I think, as I said, that starting with it with the retention after exhale just means that it's a safer, less pressurized experience.
Sorry, I'm without a camera, just a bit sick today. So for some reason, I just can't find those two. So I'm trying, but I don't know. So it's easier for me to do on the inhale, I reckon. So when I feel the expansion more.
Yeah, and that's very common. So there's quite a few techniques where where if you put something in the pot first, it gives you something inside the pot to push out with, if that makes sense. But not ironically, I don't know what the proper turn of phrase is, but it's a weird catch-22 where there is more internal pressure when you perform it after inhale, and that's also what sort of can make it a little bit too much for some people. So what I'd say is just have a play with both, and use the side of the breath that helps you to access it best. So if putting something in the pot first to work with helps, then you can do that.
Thank you so much. And one, my body generates a bit of heat, interestingly, on pauses like after the exhale. So when we're doing that, is this normal?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no correct response to any of these techniques. If there is latent heat in the system, then that will sort of come to rise in that space of emptiness. And there's nothing to do about it, just to watch. And what I would say, Lana, and anyone else who is experiencing that perception of heat when you're practicing your baya kumbhaka, is to take a little bit longer at the end of the practice to maybe work with your ujjayi pranayama, like we did last week, or maybe some chandra bedana, just to smooth out that heat before you move into shavasana.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank
No
you,
worries. No worries. Izzy, you've got your hand up next, I believe.
Yes. So, you said that when somebody does a Makarāsana, that's going to tell them a lot about their experience, and also what they're experiencing will communicate to us what's happening with their breath. So I was wondering if you had like maybe just a couple of key points. What does it tell us what they feel in Makarāsana?
Okay, so what I meant by that, and that was maybe a little bit sloppy, my explanation, but essentially what I'm talking about is the discovery of that three-dimensional breath. So when we talk about the three-dimensional breath in the level 1 training, we're talking primarily about the movement of the rib cage and the lungs within the rib cage. And from a beginner's standpoint, that Makarāsana is telling us, you know, how that student is, or maybe isn't, accessing that first dimension of the pot, the thoracic part, the top of the pot. This morning we were exploring, you know, even the bottom and the not the floor of the pot, but the thoracic and the intra-abdominal. And so what I was getting at is, it's when students are in Makarāsana, it helps them to access their three-dimensional thoracic movement. As teachers, their ability to do that, and the feedback we're getting maybe under our hands if we're performing the adjustment, or just what we can see with our eyes. If you're watching someone in Makarāsana and you're giving them very clear instructions to really push the belly and let it swell, and you can see that there's not much movement happening there, well, that's, you know, telling us that there's some work to be done.
And can I just like, my experience is that I feel like, use another metaphor, like if you're icing cupcakes and you have like an icing thing that you've put the icing in, that's your breath inside of the icing container. Just doesn't matter the fact that it's coming out the other end, it's not supposed to. But like, imagine that thing could expand. I feel like it wants to come out the top a lot. Like I feel like my throat, it's like I can't tell whether or not I'm supposed to be creating a slight Valsalva to keep it down here, or whether or not I'm supposed to be clenching more, or like I feel like I'm doing something wrong, or I don't know.
Okay.
Like, or maybe it's inflammation, I don't know.
Okay, so
That makes sense?
no clenching ever.
Yeah.
Okay. And what I'm sort of getting from what you're asking me, Izzy, is that as the pot is filling, you're sensing that it wants to move out the bottom of the container, and you're sensing that to the top. So that's where the position of the tongue and our jivha mudra and the beginning of the formation of Jalandhara Bandha is really important. And so what I would suggest then, as you practice, Izzy, is maybe take your full Jalandhara Bandha and really, really seal the pot. So I'm going to give you guys another metaphor. I want you to imagine, you know, those mason jars that you do pickling and preserves in, and they're attached to the lid of the jar, and they just sort of seal down, and they've got that rubber seal around the outside and the metal prong that you push down to really lock the lid in place. Does everyone know what I'm talking about? Okay, cool.
Yeah, definitely.
So here we go. Imagine that the glass lid with the rubber seal around it. That's the tongue. Yeah, that's that first part. And then as you just close the lid, that's what we were doing today, lifting the collarbones with the tongue in position and dropping the chin down. And then if you were to really take up your full Jalandhara Bandha, that's like flipping the metal thing to really seal that mason jar lid in place. Yes, that's how I would describe it, but never, ever any clenching or tension.
Thank you so much. So I should practice Jalandhara Bandha.
Use your full Jalandhara Bandha. And something that's really useful for all of you to know when you're working with full Jalandhara Bandha is as the heart and the chin sort of reach that final position, swallow. That swallowing action is what is really, creating that suction seal in the body. And that should help with your feeling of not being able to contain that at the lid level.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I think the icing thing was a bad example because it insinuates the sun is coming out the other end, which is not what I meant. So I meant it felt like it accidentally comes out the top, but thank you.
It's early in the morning and none of us are caffeinated, so we are all forgiven. Does anyone else have any questions or comments about how you are tracking, how you went this morning?
I think I'm finding the Baya Kumbhaka interesting for now, and I'm keeping curious and experimental, but it feels so lovely to be there. And then suddenly the pangs for like take a breath become so strong. And I'm like, no. So I'm obviously it's early days, but I'm just trying to find the balance of when is my next inhale, and it does get shorter and shorter. And then it messes up the exhale a little bit towards the end of the exhale, where I feel like I need to like activate my belly a bit to get the last bit of air out in order to come to that empty state.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're my observations for this morning. And I also felt the heat, like I was sweating.
Okay, so that's all very, very normal. And it's we had some feedback last week, I believe. I can't remember who it was, but it's very common on the Baya Kumbhaka for those retentions to sort of drop off a cliff and get shorter and shorter. One of the reasons that happens is that when you're pausing with the pot empty, you don't have any of that internal pressure to sort of push back and keep everything open. And so there is, this is not the word that I want to use, but I have to, there's a sense of sort of internal collapse of the alveoli in the lungs don't have that pressure, so they are not, and so it begs the thought, oh well, why are we doing this via Kumbhaka? Well, we need to strengthen the walls of the pot. And whenever I talk about pressure in the walls of the pot, I'm also talking about pressure in the walls of the nadis. And so we need to be able to work with a depressurized system in the Baya Kumbhaka and a pressurized system on the Antara Kumbhaka. They're both pressurized. It's just one is much more obvious, and you're getting that inflation, you're being propped up from prana being held in the pot. The Baya Kumbhaka is trickier because the pressure's on the outside of the vessels. If that makes sense, everyone. Yeah. But no worries, that's totally normal. But this is important, guys. You'll notice that I didn't worry too much about the reset breath after the Antara Kumbhaka, but you definitely need a few rounds of reset breath after the Baya Kumbhaka. That is to blow off the carbon dioxide that's been building, and that's also to re-inflate the alveoli and to just repressurize the system. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. All right, my beauties. I'm sorry I took us 10 minutes over today. It is sometimes necessary. If you've got any other questions, remember you can pick up the phone. You can drop me an email. I'm so available to you guys, unless I'm in the middle of chopping onions and making dinner. Lots of love. Have an awesome day, my loves. I'll speak to you later. Bye.